What's up, everybody? It's David here. Welcome back to part 2 of my very insightful conversation with Marquise, host of the Reading podcast, community activist, young person out here doing it. I'm very proud of you and happy to have you on my show. Our show. Shout out to Lisa and Talia with RDG So Speak. So we were talking about just you being unapologetically black, in the city of Reading, and I think it's something you see more in bigger cities. You see it in New York City, you see it in Washington D.C., and I think you bring that energy here, which I love. And I think your experience is unique because you're not only black, but you're of a particular skin tone, and you're educated, and you're young, and you're an entrepreneur, and all of these great things. And I think your experience is so unique and it's important. And I think the conversations that you guys talk about in your day-to-day one-on-ones and in Dear Reading on the podcast, shout out to your co-hosts as well, Bree and Marie and Will.
Yeah,
I used to have Will. I used to have him as a student at Reading High, so shout out to him. I'm very happy to see him doing his thing. A lot of times, because on this show we like to talk about solutions. So our conversations, I think a lot of times the solutions are just having a dialogue. And I think what Dear Reading does is it provides the space for dialogue to happen in terms of conversations about race. Would you agree?
Yeah. I would always say, like, we try to provide the conversation on race and just give a little bit of insight to how do young black people think about how the world kind of works for us right now. How are black millennials internalizing this? Okay,
so if there's someone on the outside who's feeling like, okay, well, I don't necessarily have these feelings of treating black people or brown people in Reading like they're others. I don't have these feelings of leaving them out and not including them. How do they go about being an ally? The same way that someone who, may or may not be gay or bi or what have you would be an ally for that community.
Right. So for me personally, my ideology, I don't trust allies. I'm not.
There we are.
Yeah. So for me, I don't believe in the idea of allies because there's still a certain privilege that you can retreat back to, right?
But is privilege always a bad thing?
No, because you can use your privilege, right? But why I personally don't, anybody who declares himself an ally, I become suspicious of because I take allyship as a verb. You just do it. There's no real, like, I have to declare myself as this. If you are doing the work,
just do it.
Just do it. Allyship is a verb to me. Allyship is not a noun because once you try to declare you are something sometimes, it's hard for you to live up to that expectation. But if you were just doing what you need to do and just doing the bare minimum of acknowledging our humanity and our existence and putting in the work to be able to kind of move that, then I will always get behind you. Like, I'm not going to immediately like dismiss somebody, but I understand the value that people are able to bring.
How does one do that, though? And without using the word ally, because Marquise does not like the word ally.
No.
And now I'm thinking differently about it.
Yeah. But I think that comes in a form of education, that comes in a form of dialogues, that's coming in the form of leaving the space of comfort that we're kind of used to a lot of the time. Like it's hard for you to go into a room and be like, oh, your foundation is not conducive to our humanity. Your foundation is invalidating my experience. And to say that a person is wrong, that's hard. Like I said, it's like getting rid of ego and knowing that you're coming into a space that's not necessarily your own. And you have to understand how you're taking that space too. So if you're coming in here to simply learn, that is awesome. And coming in here to understand this is a lived experience of somebody outside of myself, then make sure you do that. I would never go to a women's conference and always like interject my opinion. Well, I think no, that's not what you're there for, because now you're going into space that was made for women to be able to talk about their lived experiences and that collective experience. My collective experience is not the same as a white person, a Hispanic person's collective experience. You know what I mean? But I know I can go into these rooms and internalize, take in, listen, and learn how I can do better. You know what I mean? Okay,
so internalize, listen, learn how you can do better.
Put action behind that.
Now, what if a person doesn't even know that they are engaging in acts or activities or statements or conversations that could be, well, I think someone knows a conversation, but what if they don't even know that they're being lumped into this group of people who kind of don't get it in terms of race?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely say it's like in terms of, you have to understand, if I'm critiquing, it's usually the whole. Like a lot of the time,
Okay.
like they're like,
so maybe not to cut you off, but maybe not getting defensive.
don't take it personal.
Don't take it
It's
personal.
not a personal thing, you know?
Okay. I think that's a big part of it.
And that's the hard part, is because if you say this group of people is doing this and you're like, well, I am doing everything I need to do. It's not you necessarily. Like, it's like Cinderella's shoe. Like it fit her because that's the situation that it fit. It's not it's not fitting everybody else. So it's like it's like wear shoes if it fits. Like if the shoe fits, kind of deal like that. But I think historically it's important for us to still recognize as a whole, this is how whiteness has affected the Black community. As a whole, we have to understand how the patriarchy has affected women. How does this affect everybody? So I can participate in it, but I also have to understand if I'm getting called out for it, that's now something for me to have to check. But when I do it, I try to do it mostly by leading with love a lot of the time. And I think that's what people forget, is because we're all humans. We're allowed to grow. We're allowed to learn. We're allowed to do this. And so I really try to say, like, hey, I received this way, and this is why. And then this is the boundary that I set up. But if you're not having that conversation, not setting those boundaries, and being very straightforward about how you receive it, it's different. And there's a difference between like shaming people and guilting people. You know what I mean? Shaming people is like, you did this bad thing and you're the reason for blah, 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 blah. Whereas guilt doesn't necessarily bring that. It's like, oh, I did this thing, and you feel bad about doing something and you want to reconcile with it. Guilt makes you want to change. Guilt doesn't necessarily, it's not always, the connotation is not always the worst.
Gotcha. And I think the history part is a big part of it, because even if I'm a white person and I know that I don't treat people this way, if I'm not a part of that group that is othering and things like that, I know that historically I'm a part of this group that has done that.
Right. I mean, look at Elizabeth Warren. That's my good sis. Like, but she's done history. She's taken from Black academics and Black historians, and she's starting to see like, oh, this is how I may have participated in X, Y, and Z, and here's how I want to rectify that.
Gotcha.
And so, and it's hard because you have Elizabeth Warren, then you have the other flip of the coin, which is Hillary Clinton, and it's just like, oh, why did some Black people receive her differently than Black people were receiving Elizabeth Warren? You know what I mean? But that's also the context of these people's beings too.
Yes.
So I think that's a good example of how the two are a little bit different. One seems a little more pandering, while the other one is actually doing the work to switch it around.
Doing the work.
Yes.
That's a big part of it. Speaking of work,
yes.
Let's switch gears a little bit. You recently left your job.
Yeah.
What? We don't have to say the name of the company, but what was your title there?
I was a social media and content consultant.
Social media and content consultant. What does that mean besides that? Every time you were working, I would see you on Instagram.
Yeah. I mean, but that
Marquise, are you doing any work over there?
I swear. But that's essentially me strategizing with a couple of clients and figuring like, all right, well, here's the goal that you want to achieve, and here's how social media will add to this goal. How do we optimize your social media? How do we create campaigns for a specific goal that you have in mind? Social media is a lot more strategic than people think. Right. And so it's fun, but stressful.
And you love it?
Yeah, I love it. It definitely was not my major.
Okay.
Because I studied theater and broadcasting. So
nice. All right. But you left. You left that job.
I did.
So let's talk about that.
It was. I'm a Virgo, so I'm like, it was super anxiety inducing for me. Like, I'm usually very calculated with my moves that I make. But this is the first time I took a move that I didn't know where I was going to land. I didn't know it was going to happen. I just knew that it was something I needed to do because it was weighing heavy on my spirit. So like when something's not right and something's bothering me, it starts to like internalize into my body. I'm just like, my body's not feeling this right now. Right. And that's the first time where I actually felt like that at a workplace. I work at somewhere that I pride myself, and I'm just like, this is not filling my soul. This is not fulfilling my purpose. There's no purpose to the clients that I'm working with. And so more and more as I realized, I was like, I love media, I love culture, I love entertainment, pop culture. Those are the things that I want to work for. Like strong Black lead for Netflix, fire. Like that is the most fire social media account. But those are the kind of things where I was like, I need something more purposeful and impactful to our communities.
What do you think your purpose is?
Opening up dialogue, creating space for people to learn, creating space for people to be safe, creating space for people to want to just express themselves a little bit differently, you know what I mean? And be a little more authentic with it. And I think we're doing that with Dear Reading by creating a space where I've never seen this many Black people come out for us before. Like that's the first time I was like, oh my God, where'd y'all come from?
I like your live podcast event.
It's the live podcast event. It's any of the workshops that we host. It's the people that we interact with on social media. It's the old heads that are coming and we're just like, we're so glad that y'all young bucks are taking the reign. Even yesterday, Earl from the Grilling Show.
Oh, nice.
He was just like,
Cool.
like it's so dope because we had a bunch of black men get together just to talk.
I did want to talk about that too. So you got a bunch of, not a bunch, you got like 10 or so?
It was about, 8 to 10 of us yesterday?
Nice. Black men together at Grilling Show. Shout out to them. And you guys just created a dialogue, a space for you to feel comfortable as black men to have this conversation.
Just talk about, and this was like just the first one. We want to be a little more guided in our conversations for the following ones, but just seeing the energy of us all being around. Nice. And it was funny because even with it just being black men in the room, the black men were just like, I would love to have a woman here. It would be cool to have black women in this conversation too. And just like understand what that space looks like. And
I saw that there was a question. Somebody posed a question, why just black men? Do you want to answer that here?
Yeah, that's fine. And when we do talk about why just black men, because it's a very, what I always say is like, for us, it's a unique experience.
Absolutely.
And so there's anti-blackness within the term, like POC. I don't like that term. But because that erases like the black very experience that we have. When you say POC, like,
you're just lumping color. Everybody
together.
Has color.
Yeah. Okay. So I always say like.
But what about a Latino man or woman who considers themselves black? There's a lot of them.
Yeah, and that's
a lot of us.
Yeah, but that's also the thing, because a lot of time, if you consider yourself black, you're more than welcome to come. But if you are denying your blackness, then that's where it becomes an issue, because now you're taking a space for us to just be human, and we're just people who happen to be black versus black people. That's a different feeling.
And you kind of got to do it all the time. You can't just hop in. You can't just,
like you can't just say like, oh, I'm going to choose to be black because I like the new Jay-Z album that just came out. Song. I like this and partake.
You got to take all of it. When somebody, when a black man gets killed, you need to say something to do something.
Yeah.
Right. But let's lighten it up a little bit.
Yes.
You were just on the cover of El Palo magazine with myself and Antonio and Mateo. What was that like to be 23 years old on the cover of a magazine? What's that like?
It was mad cool. It was dope just because of the response that we were getting, but it was cool to be amongst men who are all like really embodying, especially like what you say, like being scared of a day job. Like Antonio quit his job.
I know. I'm just like getting everybody to quit their jobs. We're all going to be homeless together.
But no, I don't say all that now.
No, and I think that's something I thought about too, because I think about the fact that there's probably people who seen that and they were like, well, those guys are not successful. Like, what kind of car do they drive? And do they do this or do they have that? And I think I love the fact that Rosa titled it Redefining Success, because you know what I mean? Like, success is totally different from what it used to be, because I feel like we are really not just us who are on the covers, but anyone who's choosing to quit their job or choosing to match their education with their passions. They are, creating this idea that we can define success, and it doesn't have to be with how much is in my bank account. If I have a car, things like that. Like,
and that's
especially in Reading, like I don't need a car in Reading.
No, not
walk
at all.
everywhere I go.
Walkable. There's a bus. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So just this idea of redefining success. So I just want to close it up with, what does success mean to you?
Success to me is really me being aligned with myself. It is really making sure that I'm listening to my intuition. I'm listening to how my body's reacting to things, but also being able to walk in my purpose and understand my purpose. And I think that's the key in it, is because you keep ringing in my head. I keep thinking about mortality lately, and I know that's super dark, but I'm just like, what am I doing to walk in my purpose? And
if something, God forbid, if something were to happen to you.
Yeah, so I'm just like, from seeing Nipsey to seeing Homecoming, and then the Central Park 5 when they see us. Yes. Seeing all of those intersections and seeing like how we take it up, I'm like, I need to find what my purpose is, and that's through storytelling. And how do I continue to host these conversations, host these events, host these things that will continue to tell a story and leave an experience with somebody. Yes. I don't just do events. I like to make it an experience for people. Yeah, I think you definitely found it for sure. How would you say, what advice would you give for someone who hasn't found their purpose yet? I know do the work sounds like that's just like a buzz phrase now. But for somebody who hasn't found their purpose, see that thing every single day. Like when you're doing your 9 to 5 or when you're just waking up, what is that first thing you think about? And what are your values and what does that look like? Like I know my values are discipline, communication, humor, family. What does that look like?
Discipline is one of your values?
Yes, I think discipline is extremely necessary.
I need to adopt that value.
Yeah, man,
I need a little more discipline.
but the discipline came from my papa. So
Okay.
like used to go fishing. That's patience. That's discipline. Like it's going to come. You have to wait for this and move. Like you see the world vibrate, your fish line vibrate. That's your moment to move and catch that moment. So,
I love that. I think we should end there. That's
Yes.
your moment. Look for the fish line to vibrate and then catch it.
Yes.
Learn and unlearn and walk in your purpose. Awesome.
Okay.
Where can the people find you?
You can find me on all social media at Marquise Davon. That's MarquisEDavon, literally on all social media. And if you want to find the Dear Reading podcast, you can listen to it on Spotify, SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, everything. Just type in Dear, DEAR, RDG.
And you guys tape at Pagoda City in Goggle and it's open to come, right?
Yep. Every Monday night, you are more than welcome to come in and sit on a live recording, and then we release the episode at 8 a.m. on Tuesdays.
Nice. And that's an open space for anybody. Anybody willing to learn, wanting to hear about solutions, wanting to create community, grow community,
get
and
involved.
all of the above.
Like we've had interns. We have 2 interns, like that kind of interns, but they just are like apprentices.
They just hang
and stuff, and come in and like learn the video part, learn the audio part.
Very cool. Well, this is David Nazario here with Marquise. We're signing off for the RDG So Speak podcast. Talk to you later. Peace.